Hey, everybody, welcome to the Game Junkie Show, episode 15. And today we are going to talk all about details. Very excited to have a bunch of first timers on the show. So, everybody, please welcome Pucho,
Hey, nice to meet you.
Big B, Bilal.
Hey, what up, everyone?
We got the beautiful Deezy.
What's going on, everybody? How are you?
And back again for the second time, Akira.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
All right. So, Pucho, let me just start with you. Tell me a little bit about. There's a lot of hoopla on Twitter, right? People are kind of going crazy about detail. So, when you think of detail, so if I say to you, what does it mean to you when a game is detailed? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it could mean a lot of things. So for me, what immediately comes to mind is Metal Gear Solid and like the insane amount of details that those games tend to have. With like, when Metal Gear Solid One first came out, and I was 8 years old. Just seeing that you could leave like a trail of footsteps in the snow was like mind blowing to me as a kid. Like, because just games didn't do that type of stuff, and Metal Gear has done that, like, throughout all of their games pretty much. They've always included like insane levels of details. And that's sort of like the related to the Twitter hoopla is that like you could shoot fruit in one game and not in another. But like another form of detail would be like Mass Effect, right? I just finished playing the series like a month ago for the first time. And just the fact that you could talk to someone in the first, game of Mass Effect, and you have some kind of conversation, you mention something, and that conversation will come up in Mass Effect 3. Like that's also like an insane level of detail. Even though in that game you can't shoot fruit, it's just right. It's just every game is gonna have a different context to what details mean, and you know, it's a shame to try to compare like, oh, Mass Effect doesn't have details the way that like Metal Gear Solid does, right? It's like it's not a one-to-one comparison because they're not trying to aim for the same thing, pretty much. So.
Totally makes sense. Bilal, let me ask you then. Do you, if I ask you, what does detail in a game mean to you? Kind of the same question. What does it mean to you?
Okay, so for me, I have a background in video games development. I went to university and actually have a degree in computer software and video game development. So for me, it's like if we're talking about details in games, it it's hard to just say it's one single thing. And like Puchu just said, like it completely depends on ambition, the scope, and the mission of the game itself. You cannot look at, for example, he mentioned Metal Gear. You cannot look at Metal Gear Solid 4, where Old Snake is, when he's hunched over, if you spend too much time in that position, he will stretch his back. And he's like, oh my God. And you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Attention to detail. That's just Hideo Kojima's MO in general. And then you look at, I don't know, a game like, let's just use Halo as an example. And because you can't shoot the fruits that are not exploding properly according to some people, but then you'll completely ignore the fact that 343 isn't promising you incredible fruit physics. It's not attempting to give you amazing fruit physics. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Call of Duty will tell you they've got fish AI. 343 never said they have that, so they don't need to have that. It's literally all just based on the actual scope and ambition, and I guess not necessarily the caliber of the studio in a disrespectful way, but it's like a studio like Naughty Dog are looking to create a game that is completely about immersion. So if they give you high level of detail in terms of ambient animations, secondary animations, it's expected. Whereas a studio like 343 aren't telling you that they've ever wanted to do that. So that's okay. Same thing for any other studio. Even if Insomniac don't do it, it's okay because they're not supposed to. It's depending on the genre, depending on the scope of the game, and once again, the ambition. What is the scope of all of this? And that's what I think about when it comes to detail of a game. I mean, I love JRPGs, and I'm sure Akira will echo the exact same thing. So when I'm playing when I'm playing Persona 5, you're not going to tell me that game is not incredible because it doesn't have, I don't know, the best cloth physics. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even going to entertain that argument. I'm just going to laugh at you and keep it moving and say, yeah, this game is going to give me 120 hours of gameplay, and I'm going to love every single minute of it.
That's an awesome description, and I had no idea you were a developer. So getting it from really the analytical point of somebody who
Yeah.
understands that technical aspect is great.
Mm.
So then, Deezy, let me ask you this: are details really only important when they're relevant to the immersion that a game gives you?
Um, no, because to go back to what Bilal was saying, it all goes back to what the developer wants. Currently, I'm working on a game right now. Shout out to Fireslug, um, where our focus on detail is going into the narrative side of things, right? So our characters that we have a very detailed system of how you recruit a character into a game, how we set up their backstory, how their backstory affects all the other characters that you interact with, and then the details of that also based on who you choose. They may not get along with who you're working with, and that might affect how the game plays out dynamically. So like there is different forms of detail and different forms of and there's different context of what detail is in games. So I think the fruit gate that's going on right now is focused specifically on uh, fruit physics in in certain video games, and like to 343's credit, that's something that they didn't necessarily I don't know if they spent a whole lot of time, but it's clearly there and you could shoot it and it's destructible. So there's detail in that, but is it detail like Naughty Dog kind of thing? No. Is it detail like Metal Gear Solid? No, but it's details in and of itself, but that's just one aspect, right? um for a Halo game, the details probably comes in the fact that it has to be a fluid, kinetic shooter, in the line of what old school Bungie games were like. They still have that very tight knit, detailed shooting gallery, shooting opera for them is what I call it, because it's a very kinetic, fast moving experience for them. It's floaty. It's a little bit weighty. There's a whole lot that goes towards that kind of stuff. So the details, it means a lot of different things for a lot of different games and for a lot of different developers, and it all ties back to what Bilal says. The scope, the mission, and not it has less to do with the caliber of the studio and more to do with the talent and the budget, and basically what the design parameters are for that game and their specific goals. So like the game that my team that the team that I'm working with is working on, we have a very our art style is very anime-esque and fantasy-like, and we have small visual flourishes that are reminiscent of like anime and stuff. So the team working on the art side, working on that, puts a lot of effort into making sure the details for that is reminiscent of the over exaggerated fast swiping moves of like anime characters. But there's a whole lot more detail going into, like I said, the characters' interactions with other characters and how you recruit things and how the story matches and meshes with everything. And that's where a lot of the energy is going, to making sure that this game with our recruiting system works that way. So that's detail for me right now. And it means different things for everybody else. So that's my take.
Beautiful take. So it sounds like, wait a minute, this is a radical thought. These developers know what they're doing, okay?
Right.
And
Okay.
the details they're giving you are the
Yeah,
details that are best suited for the game. I mean,
Exactly.
I know in The Last of Us 2, fruit didn't explode, and that did not destroy that game one
mm-mm.
little
Exactly.
bit. Akira, why don't you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on? I know you play. First of all, Akira, you play freaking everything. So
Yeah.
can you think of an example of a game that maybe didn't have a lot of details that was still a fantastic game, or maybe the
Oh,
reverse, a game that had a lot of details but it lacked as a game?
I would.
But when we say details, are you specifying about visual details or just everything
Well,
else?
that's up
It's
to you
everything else.
because
Yeah.
Mm,
really details is subjective. I mean, I
Right.
could
Yeah, it
say,
is. Yeah.
I mean, the suits in Miles Morales are incredible, right? Like, I mean, I can
mhm,
see that's detailed to me, but
mhm.
you know, I don't
It's the
I don't
visual
know.
flourish.
I
Yeah,
don't know if
yeah.
I can grab a banana with my webhook and like blow it.
Uh,
It's
yeah.
really subjective, and I want you guys to approach this in your own kind of
I,
subject matter of what it means to you.
I think a game that I played without so much detail, but it was such a fun experience, was Ghost Runner. I don't know if you guys played Ghost Runner, you know, first person kind of like Ninja Cyborg. I'm pretty sure you guys know about
Yep.
it, right?
We've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, Ghost Runner doesn't have a lot of detail. I mean, you know, talking detail, there's really not a lot of detail. Maybe you can cut some stuff, but that's basically it. And then everything is focused on how fast you are, the bullet time kind of mechanic, the how you, basically how you slash an opponent, like how they get cut, can also be called detail. But in terms of, you know, overall detail in general, it's not a lot. It's just really fun game. So it, about detail, I it's such a heavy topic because there's so many factors when it comes to detail, especially for me, because this is what I notice whenever I notice a detail that, you know, like I really love that I can't stop talking about. For example, what I notice is that when people point out these details online, a lot of the developers who have Twitter accounts actually retweets these details and then kind of like says thank you for noticing, or thank I'm so happy that you noticed this, and something like that. So one of the major things that I've noticed then is details that developers that they put details on is because they wanted it to be there. So there was this Naughty Dog developer before, when, you know, remember that Ratchet and Clank plant not reactive thing was going on. I'm pretty sure you guys heard of that, right? Like
Oh,
Ratchet and
Yeah, yeah,
Clank.
yeah, yeah.
we
Yeah.
did.
Trust
So
me, yeah.
there was this ex Naughty Dog developer who tried to explain that yeah, the details like this is gonna be, there's so many factors into making details like this. For example, the dragon was trying to fly through, you know, like plants, and is not reacting. And this guy basically said there are so many factors. Some factors you can think of as a developer would be, it's not that important. There are more important things to do because, you know, time is limited. Uh, it's basically, it can mess with the gameplay if they try to make it reactive. The dragon flying through, and they made that a little bit solid, and it can mess with their gameplay. That's also one more thing I remember he said, because he said they're gonna need to like uh, manually animate all of that. That's why it's kind of a lot of work and kind of not really so noticeable anymore because you're just flying with a dragon. I'm pretty sure nobody would have noticed that if nobody posted that video, to be honest. Like it's, you know, if nobody like try to slow it down and try to zoom on that, I don't think anybody would have noticed it because the dragon was flying pretty fast in
I wouldn't have.
Magic Flag. Yeah.
It's,
So yeah, good.
I'm just saying that's the last thing I was looking at is
Yeah, yeah,
vegetation that was way far away from the objective marker. That was just me. I
yeah.
I wouldn't have noticed that at all.
Exactly, and this is the thing. When I notice details that I appreciate, I just really how do I say this? But for me, details are just really what developers want. I cannot. I don't think there are details in games that that a developer didn't want to have, or did you just because they must put it there. I don't think that's really the case. I don't think every kind of detail that's put in a game is because developers want it. Either it's small or it's big. Like for example, Red Dead Redemption 2. You can't tell me that all those details put in that game is something that they didn't want. Now, if there are just more details prioritized versus, you know, like they couldn't put so much like this fruit physic problem, then I don't think that's a flawed developer. I just really believe it's more of a they chose to not to uh, handle that because they got other things to handle, basically. And this is one more thing about a detail that I wanted to talk about. Uh, you guys remember Black Myth Wukong, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Yeah,
developers
yeah.
from Black Myth Wukong, I've been reading their. I have a Chinese friend. I'm telling him to translate what the what they're typing in their Chinese Twitter, because they got Chinese Twitter. The Weibo is what it's called. And I've been reading what they've been saying, because they're like kind of explaining to people what made them want to make a game like Black Myth Wukong. Because these developers, like I said for a lot of times in my account, that these developers are veterans in mobile gaming. They've been doing it for 12 years, making mobile games, but they never got to make a game on the caliber of like what they want to do is God of War, as they gave an example. And somebody highlighted there that they said, when you look at a game like God of War, this is the founder of Game Science Studio, the developer of Black Myth Wukong. He said, when you look at the game like God of War, they are big fans of it because they can notice so much detail put into the game that they can recognize a AAA, is what they said. And the example that they give is actually not a very big detail. It's actually tiny. It's a tiny detail. Basically, they said, remember when you like when this huge gate opens in God of War? There's this gate that opens in God of War, and they said you will notice that there are dust particles falling from the gate, because it's kind of like when you open a door and there's like it's didn't open for a long time,
Mm.
and then you open, there are like dust particles falling realistically. That's a detail that they point out they were such a big fan of. They said seeing those dust particles just falling there, it looks so realistic while opening that big gate. They said that's AAA for them, and that's basically the amount of caliber of detail that they want to put in Black Myth Wukong. That's basically what they said. So judging from that statement, it's just basically really what developers want. I'm gonna say something kind of, maybe, I don't know if it's controversial, but I don't think developers are putting details to show off or something. I really think it's just pure ambition of what they want to put in the game.
Absolutely.
And some people prioritize different kinds of details. Like I said, I'm kind of an overall person. Like, I take what I can get, because, like I said, the developers kind of does it that way. They do what they can do, so I take what I can get as well. I cannot demand an unimportant detail that doesn't really benefit me, or ain't like the fruit physics. Like, for example, if Halo got amazing shooting guns and amazing AI like they always had in Bungie, I'm playing Halo Combat Evolved, and I'm still freaking amazed at this AI. And if
I mean,
they're
yeah,
focusing,
that is a detail, though. I mean, if you think
yeah,
about it,
that
it's
is
a
a detail.
technical detail, right?
Exactly.
So really,
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
is details. At least what I'm getting,
Yeah.
details are about immersion. And
Yep.
Big
Yeah.
B
Yep.
and Deezy both said that
Yeah.
immersion could be visual details.
Mhm.
It could be technical details.
Mhm.
For me, because I am a story whore, I will like, I love a narrative.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Give me,
This is sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
just give
Sorry.
me like 500 hours of like movie cutscenes. I don't give a
Ooh.
fuck. I love it.
Mhm.
So based on everything you guys have said, there are two games that I've recently played that come to mind. One of them is the Outer Worlds. Their progression system was detailed as fuck.
Mhm.
Love that progression system. Another one, to me, I like Cyberpunk. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. They did some
Mhm.
things. They did some things well. The
Mhm.
way the NPCs arc as you develop relationships with them is really detailed.
I
Most
really
games don't do
feel
that.
I really feel sorry for what Cyberpunk happened. I really think it's such a diamond that is really riddled with problems.
It's true.
I've been playing with Cyberpunk as well, and I just really feel just really feel bad for it. It's such a
Okay,
amazing
but did you sleep with Judy? Because that's all that matters. Okay, because we all know that I love Judy. And okay, I mean, like, she sends you a text message about her name rhyming with booty. That's detail. I'm sorry. Like, that is such a lesbian thing to do. Like, they nailed
Yeah.
that. I'm just sorry. I'm
Yeah,
gonna say.
no, exactly. It is. It is detail. It is detail, because
Right.
they
Yeah.
put thought.
It's detail focused on a different aspect. It isn't
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
a visual flourish,
Yeah.
but
It's
it is
more
a
of
flourish.
a
It's a
detail you can
flourish.
relate to.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
flourish that enhances the dialogue, that enhances the overall story and
Mm,
believability of the world, right?
it
mhm,
Their aspirations was for making cyberpunk this living, breathing world where
mhm,
you can do and have anything, right? So
mhm,
those kind of those kind of narrative flourishes that put the thing on there that makes every character unique because that one is a lesbian and she will text you something that, that my name is Judy and it rhymes with booty kind of thing.
mhm,
Those are it's not a visual flourish, but it's a thing that will make you go, oh, okay, this is cool, the character is nice. it
mhm,
that's a believable aspect of the character, right? So to exactly what Crystal said, details are all about immersion, and
mhm,
the immersion, what brings you into the game, could be a combination of the visuals, right? The visual detail on flourish, how realistic is this texture? How realistic is, does the hair move? That's an animated detail, right? And then you have the story. How does the lip sync with the characters? Do they emote the way you want them to when they say a line? Does the line come across? Does the line that does their vocal delivery, audio details, right? Like people, like one of my favorite games, and people,
Iron Man.
anybody who knows me right now knows that I am the biggest shill for Returnal.
Eternal. Yeah.
That game's audio detail and attention to audio detail is insane. I'm like,
Mm.
they created so many different soundscapes and they're using the 3D audio to process it. So like you could hear something creeping up on you in like the in almost pinpoint accuracy coming from behind you. And if you have the headsets that and you're playing with 3D audio enabled and whatnot, then you know just how detailed those audio sources are, right? So, and the placement and how believable they've made it with everything that's going on. So like details really falls back to immersion,
Well,
and it's more than just visuals. It's
mhm,
the
this
combination of everything that coalesces to make your
mhm,
senses bring you into the world of video games. And so,
this,
mhm,
this reminds me. Crystal, you asked me about a video game. Actually, I just played one recently. Not so much details, to be honest. You know how people talk about details, but it's an amazing game. That's
visual details.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah,
Shadow of
mhm,
the
That,
process.
Colossus is, it's not really riddled with immersion details. It's just a great game. I think the most detail that you can put in Shadow of the Colossus is, I think it's narrative, in my opinion.
mhm,
I think it's
that's a
narrative
great detail,
detail.
though. Like narrative
Yeah,
detail is
yeah.
so good.
But
Uh,
the thing with Shadow of Colossus though is it's very subtle. The way they
mhm,
do narrative is very subtle because I cannot explain it to someone who hasn't played Shadow of the Colossus, but I'm gonna try. Shadow of the Colossus has this way of making you feel like something isn't right, even though nothing is being said.
mhm,
Like they're not telling you anything. They're not telling you anything while killing the Colossus. You just go there and kill them. They're not telling you anything, but you have this lingering feeling that that what you're doing is kind of not right, or you're kind of like feeling sorry, or like why the hell are you even killing these things? But you're just doing it because it's the objective, right? You cannot progress without killing them.
so then
But
let me
I
ask
think,
you guys a question then,
yeah,
because
go ahead.
this brings up something really
Yeah.
interesting. Because I'm taking notes here.
All right.
So far we've got audio, visual, story, and technical as details. Does that also mean that the environment and the art design and the way
yeah,
the game environmental storytelling is that a
absolutely.
detail? Does anybody want to kind of
Art,
maybe talk a little
art,
bit more
yeah,
about that
art.
aspect?
I totally agree with art. What's a great example for? No, actual Persona is a great example for
Very
art.
good.
Uh, because art details. How do I say this? Like or maybe I can give just maybe an anime game, for example. Like you got DBZ Kakarot, for example. DBZ Kakarot, I played it, and I appreciate the art so much. The way they animated this in 3D, but still trying to keep the way the shading in the anime look like in some scenes. I think that's like art detail trying to make callbacks to an anime, even though they're doing it in complete 3D.
I mean, that makes sense to me. So then let me this is I don't know how hard this is going to be, but Deezy said something and it made me think of a quote recently that was said by Sydney Butler, and I went and I found it, and I want everybody to give me their take on this quote. What Sydney was telling me is that people confuse authenticity for realism. They think they want realism when they actually want authenticity. And I think that's really relevant to how details are put in game. Pucho, I want to start with you because I haven't heard your voice in a little while. What do you think about that statement and how it's relevant to how developers create these details and plan these details?
Yeah, so like I have a view on that. That's like a lot of people do want, they allegedly want realism in games, right? And sometimes I feel like that hinders the gameplay experience, right? As much as I loved Red Dead Redemption 2, I was annoyed every single time I had to get off my horse to brush it, right? And it's like that's an attention to detail that they're trying to, add different elements that may be realistic in life. But it's like I don't want to brush a horse in real life, nor do I want to brush it in a game. Like, so to me that took away a little bit from the game experience. And there's some shooters, for example, where like if you're halfway through your magazine, if you have 15 rounds left and you hit the reload button, like some realistic shooters, they'll trash those 15 bullets that are still in and that's annoying to me. It's like, oh man, like it's cool too because it adds something to think about, and especially if it's like competitive, it's just an extra element to keep track of. So it's definitely something that could add to the experience, but I feel like for some people that could be taking away from the experience. That like like sometimes a game would demand too much of you, and that is draining, so to speak.
What a great take on that. Bilal, because you and Deezy, are you a developer as well? So we have two developers on this.
I graduated in university, and then for like the first year from graduation in like 2017, like I worked on a few projects just freelancing here and there using like Unreal Engine and stuff, and then like the industry is just kind of long and kind of drains, so I was like, I'm good just doing my thing kind of thing. So I kind of haven't worked in full industry in like 3-4 years.
You have technical understanding.
Oh hell yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I think this would be really cool to get you. I'll start with you, and then I'll go to Deezy. As people who really do understand the technical aspects of the development process and designing it, I want to hear from you the realism versus authenticity. So as a developer, how do you use that to approach a project?
So you see, the thing that I love about this conversation, and Crystal, I'm so glad you've put this together, is because you've put essentially the Avengers type team together here. Because we've covered so many things that I've written in my notes. Like I muted myself when Akira was talking earlier because I was like screaming, like he's actually talking about the thing I was going to say. And then we have Pucho here talking about Red Dead 2, and I'm like, this is perfect. But it's like, for example, okay, like earlier, by the way, this is answering your question. I'm really sorry if this is long-winded, but it's like when Akira earlier mentioned about, that dragon in Ratchet and Clank and how it was like passing through the foliage and it wasn't reacting, and that caused a huge stir. You have to remember that like that Naughty Dog developer said about we just choose not to do things like that. It's because it's like, first of all, when it comes to things like immersion versus realism, also what Pucho said about people say they want one, but they really want the other, is because you have to take into consideration playability. As the gamer, as a person who's going to be the person at the end of this, the end user, what's the point flying a dragon when you're constantly having to stop because you were hitting every single thing and stopping your progress? On top of that, exactly. So it's like then you take into consideration a game like Ghost of Tsushima. Like Ghost of Tsushima is one of the most beautiful games of all time. Now, do this if you want to right now. Go on Ghost of Tsushima, take that horse and run it through those bamboo fields, and you will see how many trees you're able to run through because playability comes first. If you end up running through all these trees and you're stopping every 2 seconds, then you have to run around an entire bamboo field because you can't go through it. What's the point of the game?
And I mean, it's that goes right back to, right, you said playability, right? There's developers when movement and fluidity is a big thing for action games, right? So a game like Ratchet, where you're flying, where you're on the dragon and you're flying through everything, that fluid, that inertia, that movement, that kinetic movement, that speed is what is so exhilarating about it, right? And if you break that up just because it doesn't have the correct details of your dragon's wings are getting hitched in the tree, like who really wants to go through that when there's so much shit going on during that sequence. You're flying, you're picking up bombs and throwing them at the stuff at at the cruisers and shit from the nefarious. Like who has time to want to get their dragon's wings tangled up, right?
Precisely.
It's the same thing with the fantasy of being Miles Morales or Peter Parker in their Spider-Man games. Who has time to what developer wants to convince you that you're as agile as Spider-Man, but then you're swinging and getting caught up in a tree?
Exactly.
And there's several trees all over Manhattan and Central Park. You could attach your thing and swing, but like if you're bumping into trees, does that make you feel like a believable thing? Like how authentic is that experience to the Spider-Man experience, right?
That's a fantastic analogy.
Exactly. It's
perfect. So like when you think about it, authenticity versus realism often gets mixed up because the player's expectation is, I want something to react, but then when you're playing, does that reaction deliver the authentic feeling that you want to the experience? And the reality is no.
Absolutely.
So like when a developer is creating something, authenticity has to come first over authenticity to the gameplay has to be paramount over putting in the superfluous stuff, like the superfluous, like exploding fruit, for example, breaking apart. That's all pretty cool in a game like, say, Demon Souls, where they have 5 permutations for for rolling into, when you roll into a pot or the breakable, destructible environments, but they've gone in to say that they went back and they've created several different permutations, 5, I think they said, and then on top of that, they also had to create 5 burning permutations that instantiate themselves as over time through when things are burning. So like those are all great details for a game like that, where you're a grounded person and everything has weight and physics. And when the player slashes at it with a sword, they want to see it break. But like if I'm Ratchet or Rivet, I'm running through grass at the outer end, I don't really give 2 shits if it doesn't really bend to my whim. Like that's cool and all, but like maybe if this was, but there's time constraints and everything that goes into video game developers, because you got to have the art team. The art team has to come in and then they have to say, okay, if we're going to do this, we got to make sure that we create several different variations of this, and then we have to contextualize each of those things. So like we have to contextualize each and every one of those things, and then we have to feed that data to the animators, and the animators have to create those things, and then the programmers have to go back and do the painstaking thing of like saying, okay, this is what this is. If my shoe hits this thing, then the blade of grass or the leaf has to bend this way, and we have to call that. So like there's all these if-then statements and everything that you have to grade for, and like who's really going to sit there and pay attention to that? And I guarantee you the only people who are doing that are the fanboys that are like really caught up in the minutia of, okay, I have a $500 console that has these pretty amazing graphics. Why doesn't this do this? And I'm just like, because it's not necessary.
You see, this is what I'm saying. This is why Deezy's hit this point perfectly. Because, okay, my favorite game franchise of all time is Uncharted. It's no question. It's just Uncharted, period, end of conversation. Now, Uncharted 2 is my favorite one, but I'm going to talk. Let me just give you an example of Uncharted 4. Now,
Mm.
getting back to the whole, tree situations and how you can fly through them, blah blah blah. It's all about playability. What is this adding? What is this level of immersion adding to the game? Now, in Uncharted 4, this is how insane Naughty Dog are. If you slide down how Nate has those like amazing gun holsters, right? Like he's iconic with his gun holsters. If you slide down mud or dirt or whatever it is, snow, it doesn't matter. Just slide down on dirt with him having his gun holsters and guns holstered. If you pull your gun out and you go into if you move the camera or go into photo mode to see, because the gun holster is actually a physical model and it has actual collision detection, any part of the gun that was masked by the gun holster will be clean. Everything outside of it exposed will have mud, dirt, or snow in it. Now, this is incredible level of detail, but does it add to the game? No, it doesn't. Does it make the game any better? No, it does not. However, it does make it, for what Naughty Dog want to do, for what they want Uncharted to be in terms of its scope and ambition, it makes it that much more, I guess, immersive to you as an Uncharted fan. But a lot of people are so caught up on the visual side of detail that they don't take into consideration developer time, they don't take into consideration budget, they don't take into consideration, most importantly, what the engine can do. For example, like with Ratchet and Clank, in that, once again, I keep going back to that example of flying the dragon through the foliage, you have to make sure that all those trees, all that foliage is physically based, right? Then you have to add collision detection to it. Then there's shadows. Then you have to decide whether the shadow is going to be static or dynamic. What happens if my wing touches it? What's my bounding boxes like? It's so unnecessary, which will only impede playability. So are you playing a game or are you watching a game? And when you then criticize certain games for being just visual and just, you're just watching the walking simulators, but then you complain about stupid minutia that isn't really going to affect the playability of the game. Right. And if it does, it's only going to impede it. It's not going to make it better. So that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of people just are so caught up on the visual side of things, and they once again just use it for console war fanboys. That's literally it.
Or clout chasing.
About the question about
there's plenty of clout chasing for that too.
About Crystal's question, I think I had this hot take that I'd never said before. Like, it's just on my mind. It's basically that I think a lot of people just really don't know what they want, and they only find out once they see it, or once they see it. So for me, I think it's more really authenticity versus realism, because when we say authenticity, it's more like it's familiarity, or like something you can relate to, but it's not really that realistic. It's just something you can relate to. For example, when I say authenticity, I can think of a game like Sifu, for example. Like when we talk about Sifu is not really the most beautiful game in graphics department, but however, Sifu got this authentic kung fu. Like when you watch how the character fights, it looks very authentic, and for me that's already detail itself, because the way they're fighting, it's authentic. It's already detailed, and plus the way he tries to pick up a bottle, or when you throw someone and somebody's lying down and they start rolling because they trip over. For me, that's already detail. It's even gameplay detail. It's included in gameplay, the detail itself, and I think I would prefer those over.
So like you said, you're mentioning details, but that's just a different context of it, right, bro? Because that's clearly, it's a visual detail when you see how they're animated, but that's an animation detail in and of itself, of how authentic it is that they're doing these different motion capture techniques to get these things done. They're recording, pre-graphing them onto stuff, and then they're pulling these things. They're using motion matching, which a lot of games are using now, but they're using
not. But they're not realistic though. They're more, like I said, it was more authentic.
It's authentic to it's authentic to what the game is trying to do. So like, but that's still another detail in of itself, and they pay attention to those kind of things. So it's like, people, people only discover this is what the things that they want, or they discover that through game, and that's the beauty of video game
Yeah.
dynamics and whatnot. And that's honestly the golden chalice of what game developers go for when they're creating, because they want you to discover the wonder of all these things as you play. It's immersive, it's emergent kind of stuff. So like when you see the wind affect Nathan Drake's chest hairs,
Chest
hair
that's
goes.
a yeah,
His,
you
Yeah.
know, that's something,
his
right?
necklace goes as well. It's
Yeah.
insane.
By the way,
Yeah.
Awesome.
another game DC that actually connects to that would be Breath of the Wild. Then
Absolutely. But Breath of the Wild
Breath
is
of the
different.
Wild, yeah,
Hmm.
it's also different. But I mean, for example, when it comes to like how they said with the fruit, for example,
Hmm.
how your fruit detail. Breath of the Wild. I've seen so many details about Breath of the Wild. It's just wild how much details they have. Like for example, I think one example, like let's say it's just similar to the fruit detail, is that if I remember correctly, there's this like you can heat up things
Uh-huh.
and cook things in it.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it has a surface.
Uh-huh.
As long as you can heat it up, then it can cook it. And I think that's kind of like for example, instead of it being a display or something that's just there, it's something that's you can actually use because it has detail in it the way you can use it. Just like with the fruit reacting to a gunshot in Call of Duty, like the comparison.
Yeah,
So
but
you're saying that
Yeah.
the detail is if the detail is in the items that can be used towards the gameplay,
Yeah,
that's different
Yeah.
than a background fruit that makes no fucking
yeah,
difference.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
don't
I think
forget with
I think Breath of the
I think
Wild is. I
oh,
think
sorry,
Breath
go
of the Wild's like insanely unique in the sense that
It's
all the
way too
detail that they poured into that game actually goes right back into the systems in the game.
absolutely,
So, like
it's way too
Oh.
how
much.
wind affects things
absolutely,
So
visually,
much.
but also like
Yeah.
if you lit a fire in grass, that wind is going to
Yeah.
move the
absolutely.
fire through the
Yeah.
grass like
Yeah.
more
So
rapidly than if there was
It's
no
crazy.
wind, and
yeah,
all those things like tie back into the gameplay, which to me makes Breath of the Wild like an amazing game because
absolutely.
I get to like fawn over how detailed the game is, but then also the fact that it affects the
It
gameplay
affects
so much.
gameplay.
Yeah.
Because to
Yeah.
me, the gameplay is
It's
king,
king.
right?
Yeah.
So
It
it's
is.
like
Deserved the
if
game of the year. Yeah, deserved it so much.
yeah,
But that's the thing, right? Breath of the Wild was again another game in my notes, so I'm glad you've mentioned it. It's like you have to remember with Breath of the Wild, it's a systems based like immersive sim, right? Like
Yeah.
it's at the conceptual level of the game. When they first thought of the game, it was never seen as a game that was just going to be X and Y, right? It was supposed to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All those
Mhm.
systems, all of them were designed specifically. They're all physics based. So in a game like, for example, Breath of the Wild is very similar in like a Far Cry 2. I don't know if any of you played Far Cry 2, but if you look at the systems in playing like a Far Cry 2, how it handles fire, how fast fire will spread due to wind, destruction of environment, things like that. All of these things are so impressive, but they have to start at conception. They're never things that you can just say, oh, we're like 3 years into development. Oh, that would be pretty cool if we added. No, 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 no. You cannot do that because then you'll have to delay the game for like 2 years to actually really, really implement that. It's
Mhm.
Breath of the Wild is an incredible piece of just
Uh,
video game direction in technical, visual. Do you mean? And even visually, it doesn't look like a Naughty Dog game. Does it have to? No. But can you
No,
pick up a
not every
boulder?
game needs. Not every game
Exactly.
needs to be
yeah,
Can
Naughty
you
Dog.
pick up a
people
Not
need
every
to
boulder?
game needs
understand
to
that.
be
Yeah.
that, right?
Exactly. Can you
You know.
pick up a boulder, put it on top of a hill, and watch it run down into a bandit camp and kill everyone? No. But can you do that in Uncharted? No. You can do it in Breath of the Wild, and that's what I'm saying. It's like there's so many
Yeah.
things, and honestly, if I think people really don't understand how game engines work or the development process at all, so they get really hung up on the visual side of things rather than even appreciating the storytelling detail, the audio. Audio is the one that is so underlooked, and I'm glad you
Yeah,
mentioned this,
yeah,
Tano.
yeah, audio.
Overlooked.
I
It
swear,
is so
I'm so happy you
overlooked,
Bro,
mentioned
and
this, Tano.
I'm
like,
telling you,
yeah,
a decent game with incredible audio will make everything
Yeah,
even that much better because
absolutely.
we do things and we enjoy things a lot more when we hear the sounds.
Hmm.
Like, what good is a horror game if the soundscape for that game does
Ugh.
not convince you
Yeah.
Exactly.
that you are going to be creeped out, right?
This,
So
this is
like I can't
where
tell you how many times I got chills on the back of my neck because a sound or something happened at the right cue at
Mm.
the right time in Returnal where I just got creeped out in that goddamn house, and I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
do I really want to walk down this hallway now? Because
Yeah.
uh,
you
Yeah.
know,
this
That
this
house
is
was
where
scary.
Resident Evil 2 remake shined so much for me.
Mm.
The
hmm
I think it's so understated how amazing the audio work
Mm.
was in Resident Evil 2 remake. Like especially with a headphone, it's really hard to explain how amazing it is. It's just really
Nope.
one of the best.
Mm.
It's just one of the best audio experiences I had in a game. Resident Evil 2 remake. Like I think that the experience is already less than half if you don't wear a headphone
Mm.
while playing it. To be honest,
hmm
I'm
it's
going to
just
take your word for it because Crystal
it,
does not do scary shit. I do not
Nah.
like. I don't
Listen, I'm the same way,
do not like
Crystal.
scary
You're a
shit.
liar. You just sat here and
Crystal.
told us you played Returnal, and you're telling me,
Crystal,
"Oh, no, I
no,
don't
no,
play."
no, no.
Oh,
Listen,
get out of
listen,
here.
listen. I played Returnal. It's a psychological horror game as
Yeah,
much as it is an action game and
which is
everything,
worse.
which is
Psychological's
worse.
okay. It's like
But
creepy
here's the thing,
shit
right?
jumping at me.
There's a reason why I freaking love that game, and it all goes back to Housemarque's penchant for putting gameplay first.
Mm.
That's their thing.
Absolutely.
They've
yeah.
had 20 years of nailing responsive, fast moving, high action, throw everything at you and be inundated kind of thing. And so like when they moved to 3D, I was just like, yeah, I'm totally on board for this. And I knew the
Yeah,
game was going to be special. But
absolutely.
like um
It's not really scary though, is it? It's more like a psychological thriller
there's
versus
psychological
Yeah.
yeah.
horror.
There's horror elements to it. Like the sequences when you go into the house are absolutely scary, and then
Yep.
there are a few well done cutscenes within the game that really surprise you and shock you, where you're just like, holy shit,
Mm.
what's gonna happen? But for the most part, that's their horror. They don't really dive really deep into the horror things.
It-
Like I'm not a big horror fan. I love no. Let me say this. My favorite horror game is Dead Space and Dead Space 2.
Okay.
Yes.
Those games scare the crap out of me, but like ask me to go to a scary film and go watch it, probably not. I'm not doing that shit. Like and like I'm telling you, it took me 3 months to beat Dead Space 1 and even longer to beat Dead Space 2 because of how fucking scary those games were to me. And like whenever a brand new horror game gets announced, I'm just like, I want to be scared, but I also don't. So like,
Mm.
why am I going to put myself through it? But then it all goes back to the audioscape, right? So like, um, attention to detail within the audio range, like those games depend. Like jump scares are fine if everything is dark, but like if there's no scary sound that goes with it, that's convincing. Like
Nah.
Mm.
Nah.
then it falls apart. So like um those kind of games depend more so not necessarily on the visual creepiness of the environments or
Mm.
the darkly lit hallways that you have to go through and worry about and having the tension build up, but like it also goes together with the soundscape.
The
You're
That is
best.
for
walking down and you're
sure.
hearing like I played the so I wasn't a huge fan of Resident Evil Village.
Mm,
I thought the game was okay. The jump scares were fine, but like I was more creeped out about the Maiden's demo than I was about the actual game in and of itself. And when I
Mm.
played through the Maiden's demo, I was literally terrified because I could hear my footsteps and I was convinced that it was somebody else chasing me,
Mm.
because
Ugh.
mm.
you can't really see the character. And you're walking down, something's, you're in Lady Dimitrescu's castle. But like, there was just something so well done within the 3D audioscape for that game that like just the thing about walking when there's absolutely nothing else there. You're literally just walking and you're hearing your footsteps, but you don't know if it's the reverb from the footsteps or you're being chased or being
Yeah.
pursued and whatnot. And so like um the details, when we come back to that, a lot of developer time and efforts went into making sure that the details in the sound was believable, and that players could psych themselves out by just listening to their own footsteps. And that's a success in and of itself. And that's a detail that's underappreciated and overlooked for simply just the visual flourishes, because we spend money on these $500, 500 or £499 machines to wow us visually, and that's the expectations that we've placed on ourselves as a thing, because we feel with every generation the visuals have to the visual splendor has to match the thing, or else what else is it? But like, I'm loving that this generation, especially on the PlayStation side of things, that sound design and sound, a very, very, very nuanced look at sound is making a comeback and like really putting us into it, because like, I don't think Returnal would have been that good if it wasn't for the sound, the details that they place in the sound, and even other games. So like, I'm prepared to shit myself again for Dead Space, because as much as how scary that game was on the first try, I'm absolutely sure that they're gonna nail the freaking soundscape with the 3D audio now, and I'm just like, I'm ready for it. But
I mean, Mark Cerny actually used that as an example in his Road to PS5 speech. He used Dead Space as an example for 3D audio. He said something like, because of 3D audio, like if you got an enemy here, you can actually hear him, even though you're not seeing him, but you can hear it, that it's there with pinpoint accuracy. And I think, Dead Space was already scary, but to add to add that level of detail, that for example, like a Necromorph is creeping up on you, but you can only hear it but not see it. Like,
is that only applicable to the Pulse headset, or do they mean like?
No, I think this is gonna be. I think they can even. 3D audio also kind of works on the TV, right?
So right now, 3D audio is only limited to the headset. So just about any headset that you have right now will take advantage of it. But
that's what I thought. But
Sony's naturally, Sony's proprietary stuff has more things going on with it. So naturally, you're going to get the very best experience out of it, because they've spent a lot of time R&Ding and developing it with these games. So like, you're going to get that experience. But like, anybody with a PlayStation 5, if they hook up a headset to it, either wired or not, one way or the other, you're going to get a very, very good 3D audio experience.
That was actually the first thing I noticed. When I got my PS5, I got it because I wanted Ratchet and Clank, but I ended up getting it like a month earlier. On my PS4, I've always had a PS4 Pro since like that launched. I live in London. I don't know if you guys know what London's like. We live like caged chickens. We have very small homes, not like in America. You guys' ceilings are like basketball height. Do you know what I mean?
I live in Scotland now, so I live in Scotland, so I mean,
you get it.
An American living here in Scotland.
Yeah, you get it. You get it. We're
I get
friends. So because like everyone's so close to each other, like my controller is constantly got headphones in it constantly, because my TV's too loud. It's a humongous LG CX. I don't want people to necessarily be hearing what I'm playing, plus I want to be immersed. So that was always my thing. I've been doing it for years, since PlayStation 4 came out in 2013. As soon as I got my PS5, I put headphones in and I put them in my ears. I couldn't believe how good the audio engine on PS5 is. Like everything that Mark Cerny said about how serious they're taking 3D audio and we're doing this with audio, and I'm like, I can't wait for that, because I know how important audio is, especially because my friends frequent cinemas a lot. They're some of them are developers. Most of them have moved on to doing like videography and audio design, and it's like, I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I know. I get it. Then I got a PS5 and I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Like it is everything across the board, from menu to even PS4 games. Everything sounds louder, clearer, crisper, deeper. And that's just, I don't know how they did it. Witchcraft, but scientific witchcraft. That's what I'm saying.
It is really different. I'm like video game TVs, surround sound, video
Mhm.
game consoles. That's my thing. Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
I drop money on it. I love it. I have
Mhm.
a Sonos, like 9
Yeah, yeah.
speakers, 7-channel surround. Like
Mm.
I have a
Uh,
special spot on the couch.
I'm working on that right now because
Do
like
it. Do it.
I'm prepared. I told my husband I'm trying to make sure that this entire house is just
A big speaker.
an audio sensory explosion when you walk in and you turn on the TV
Yes.
or you play a video game. And I'm just like, I just want y'all to come when you sit down in my, come listening to audio. That's what I
Yeah.
want. And like, because I like this generation, especially like after experiencing how things are like, I was playing Demon Souls the other day and like, I literally just started playing it and you literally hear when an arrow whizzes by your ear.
Yeah.
And then
Uh,
if you have the headphones, you almost feel like the arrow is going to take your fucking head off. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, holy shit.
That's
God,
the
Did that
difference.
really?
Is like
And that,
I
yeah.
love that.
all of that. Like, I mean, I don't regret it. I still play all the time on that setup. But
Mm.
Yeah.
putting the headphones on, you
Yes.
do like I can't begin to describe. And I have a really good,
Yeah.
expensive setup. But what they've done, I'm so glad you guys brought this up because it slipped to my mind as a detail. What
Mhm.
they've done with that 3D audio is
Oh.
Mhm.
fucking spectacular.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
leads me to a question for you guys. Pucho, I'm going to start with you because you go too long without talking and I miss your voice. Let's talk about
More
du-
Pucho.
let's talk about DualSense, the details in the DualSense if we can. I feel like that's a good next step when we talk about details is let's talk
Jesus.
about like that fucking DualSense.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's incredible. Before like the other guys mentioned, when Mark Cerny was kind of talking about the road to PS5 and talking about the haptic feedback and things like that, I was kind of like, I wonder what it's gonna be like and blah blah blah. But it can't be that serious. And then some of my friends got a hold of a PS5 before I did, and they were talking about how insane it was, and I was like. They're just hyping it up because they got a PS5 and I promise you, it's like once you get that remote in your hand and you feel it for yourself, it's incredible. Like just driving a car, just having that like slight resistance on the triggers, and then just the ways the controller vibrates. Like it really convinces you of
They're
all
f-
the
it is far
environments that
more.
you're walking through and living through, and just playing like Astro's Playroom. I'm sure that's the
Mhm.
first thing
Oh,
everybody booted up. I
Yep.
was amazed when in that hub level, there's like a glass dome in the
Yep.
center of that room. And as you're walking on the ground, it's like vibrating away. And once you walk on the glass, it really makes you feel like you're poking glass
Yep.
with something like, a little pointy. And
Mm.
Yeah.
it has like that jabby feel that you're like,
Mm.
oh, like, and it just feels
Is
so
it gonna
incredible.
break?
Like,
Yeah. You wonder, is it gonna break? Like
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah. It's
walking
like,
on
is
this
this gonna
thing.
crack? Like,
How? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is it gonna crack? Is Astro the cute bot just gonna fall through?
it
right,
feels
right,
Um.
like
right.
it though.
Yeah.
How do you make a controller make the player feel like they are going to how do you that's insane.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
but see that all ties back to the visual flourishes that well, it all not just visual, but it all ties back to the details that they do to coalesce with your sensories, with your senses, right? So like audio, audio is very convincing. So if you're playing that with the audio headset, there's a specific audio cue that they're combining with each footstep that just kind of calls forth, and so like suddenly it's not just you're walking and the controller's rumbling, but suddenly it's you're walking and it feels like glass.
Mm.
It looks like glass already, right?
Mm.
So the illusion of that is there. You see the visual, right? But then now you have the controller, and the controller isn't just rumbling in like rumble, rumble. It's like very nuanced, pointy, um, individualized things that's like it, it's not even weighted because like old school rumble uses gyroscopes and whatnot. These things use accelerometers. They use reverb within the controller. They use a whole bunch of these little things that all combine at once for some really nuanced, fine-tuned detailed feedback experiences, and
Yeah.
it's just it is mind blowing when it all combines, and it combines at the right time and the right way. And this is all, it all goes back to the whole sensory thing, and your senses are what picks up on the details. So like, it's, yeah,
It's
man,
it's crazy.
the dual sense is like witchcraft
I said
in a controller. Yeah,
scientific witchcraft.
it's
It
witchcraft
is.
in a
Yes.
controller.
I mean, I'm
It really is.
I'm gonna be 40 years old this year. I can play Astro's Playroom. It's a fucking robot. Okay, it's a robot running around a room with a headset with I have fucking chills. It's
Yeah.
it's so fantastic. It puts
Yeah.
me on the verge of like happy tears.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
It's insane.
Bilal, as a developer, touch for me, if you would, what kind of, I mean, it's got to be hard in this DualSense environment. That has to be a lot of extra technical work. It has to be a lot more with budget and time. I mean,
Whenever I used
Technology.
to work, I was more on the modeling side of things, and just the overall design scape side of the like development. I was never more on the technical programming side. So with things like that, there's definitely a lot more R&D that would be happening in terms of like being able to perfect certain techniques that will be able to result in whatever output you want from the game. So a game like Miles Morales, for example, they could easily implement some of the things that Astro puts in, if that makes sense. But they don't have the same team. And on top of not having the same team, they wouldn't even need to implement what Astro does. Like Astro, you can feel the difference between sand, wind, water, and my favorite was ice. When I felt Astro skating, I was like, this is fake. I was like, this is fake. This has to be fake. I'm doing this myself. It's a brain thing. Whereas in Spider-Man, you don't necessarily feel the difference between him walking on like grass and walking on concrete, which is fine. Do you know what I mean? I guess it's all based on where your resources are going to go and how your
Yeah.
game engine and your audio engine is going to be able to. Because I think Mark Cerny did say that. Because I remember a lot of fanboys and stuff on Twitter were talking about how, oh my god, it's so much extra effort for third party devs to implement, so they're not going to bother with these gimmicks. They're just gimmicks. And I remember Mark Cerny said something like, it's literally the audio engine and the DualSense can essentially pick up audio cues and it will naturally map it. And everyone's like, no, yeah, like I need to find the article, but I'm pretty sure Mark Cerny said that it's so much of it can be automated and you can go back in and essentially perfect it. Now, in terms of things like, haptic, adaptive triggers and stuff, that of course is up to the developer themselves. But I'm pretty sure he did say that about the haptic, the haptic feedbacks, that it can be automated, or a lot of the development side of things can be automated. So just sound cues will naturally give you this reaction, and you can customize from there. It's the greatest controller I've ever had in my life. Like, I will flat out say that. And when people argue with me about which controller is best, blah, 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 it's always up to people's own personal opinions. But I genuinely will go on a limb and say that the DualSense is the greatest controller.
I gotta agree with you on this one. Like, and it's interesting because so a friend of mine, he works in the industry, but like in April last year, when Mark Cerny, it was shortly after, after he did his Road to PS5 thing, and my friend actually got in. He said, "Listen, mate, you need to try this controller." And I said, "This controller?" And he said, "What's coming out for the PlayStation 5?" And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Do you have one?" Because he's a licensed one. I'm not going to name drop the studio he works for, but he says, you need to get this. So literally, he lives in Manchester, and during lockdown last year, I literally did a sneak and I went to Manchester, and I literally he literally drafted up an NDA from the company and made me sign it. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to talk about it or anything. But like, I tried the prototype, and even the prototype that wasn't even fully, thing. I was already amazed by it. So like, I didn't even know what the final design of it was going to be, because they were using the prototype versions of it and whatnot. And when I tell you, like, I was surprised. So like, I didn't know when they were going to announce what it was going to be, but he said, "Look, this controller is when he said this controller is the greatest invention for video games of all time." I said, "You are a lying sack of shit," and I said controllers are controllers. They're fine, right? It's game. What's going to be the thing is
It's the game.
how the latency, the feel of it's basically just going to be how the developer puts their controls and how the characters move. But like, after playing that, after feeling the controller with the game that they were working on at the time, and it's already released, that was like, I was like, okay, you might be onto something here. And then when I got my PlayStation 5 and I tried Astros, I said for myself, this is literally the fucking greatest
Yeah.
invention for video games of all fucking time. And like, if they find some way to if they find some way to improve on that in any kind of way and make this even more nuanced, more believable, I think like I'm just never gonna leave PlayStation.
Easy. This is
But like,
yeah.
Last night I jumped on the Microsoft train for the first time in my entire life. I've never owned any Microsoft consoles or anything like that.
You know what? To go back to your point, Pucho, like I only recently got a Series S I'd say last month I got it, and I've only just started to go through and play it, and it's decent. It's a damn decently nice made console and whatnot. But continue.
Yeah, no. So I got the Game Pass on my PC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tried playing the Game Pass games with my PS4, with my PS5 remote, and it doesn't work. So I was like, all right, I got to buy an Xbox remote. And when it came in, I'm not into any of this console wars BS, right? I'm not interested in that. But my genuine impression when I held the remote for the first time, I was like, oh, this feels like a toy in comparison to the DualSense. Not even just the it was like the weight is less. It doesn't vibrate the same way. The lack of adaptive triggers,
Man,
all those things are like elements
You notice what you noticed. Oh my god! Like,
yeah,
I
I didn't realize how much the DualSense added until I went back to a
until
remote
you went
that
back.
was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
old, like of an older style, right? And
what's funny, because like, even going back to, I tried playing Ghost of Tsushima on PlayStation 4 on my Pro, just to see what it was, and even playing it, like playing Ghost on backwards compatibility on PS5, even the DualSense reacts a little bit differently. Even the pronunciations of the rumble and the subtlety of those features, they're more pronounced on the PS5, and it's not even the native version that's coming. It's not even the native version of it.
Exactly. Right.
So
Exactly.
even going back to just the DualShock 4 versus the DualSense, and I'm just like, this is literally a toy. Like, you literally, like what you said, and then of course playing. So I also bought Control Ultimate Edition on my Series S, because I wanted to see how that game stacks up, and I literally had to say, nah, I'm not doing this on Xbox. Why would I want to? Like, the dual set, like, my favorite gun is the Piercer gun, which has this wind up gradual release for the rumble. On PlayStation, on the DualSense, that rumble goes from very soft, and it's not like very soft to where it's just like rumble, rumble, rumble. I mean, it's like this gradual nudging that gets more intense. And on the Series S controllers and everything, um, it literally is just this gentle rumble that goes from one extreme and quickly jumps to the next. It's no gradual build up. It's like, and then it just gets intense. And I'm just like, wait, where's the fucking nuance to this thing?
Yeah.
Where is the gradual rise and ebb and flow of this thing to where you realize that your controller is like your gun's ready to pop and shoot off? And the level of detail of how they're able to do those things on the DualSense is just insane. So like the difference, like playing multi-platform games, I had to go back and just do it just because I wanted to see how they compare. And I'm like, definitively, even if like the game may perform better on an Xbox Series X or a PC, I prefer to play it on a PlayStation simply for how a PS5 anyway, simply for how detailed those effects are on the DualSense in and of itself, because they really do add this whole other layer, this whole other plane of groundability and believability and feeling to this. That's just like, it just taps into your senses. It just hits differently. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
They just hit differently.
I want to go back to Pucho because you recently said you got an Xbox system, right?
No, I haven't got the Xbox yet. I started playing Microsoft games on Game Pass, but on my PC. I'm trying to get an Xbox though.
So then let me ask you this. I mean, PC, obviously PC has a hardware advantage over consoles, but if you, and I think this is relevant because there are some, I have a friend who only exclusively ever played on PC, and he came over and played Astro's Playroom, and he said, I'm probably going to get one of these. I'm sold on being able to do this. What kind of thoughts do you have, like Deezy was saying, on what is the advantage that specifically PS5 has with the 3D audio and the DualSense over titles? I mean, is it as significant as it is to Deezy to you, or talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely significant. I mean, for one, to the PC point of your question, I don't know what type of technology they're gonna have to come out with on PCs, but that the controller is gonna be one aspect to gaming on PC that's gonna be forever lesser than consoles until they figure out some technology to make your mouse and keyboard have some type of haptic feedback. I don't know I don't know what type of hardware is required to do that on the keyboard, but until they do something like that, it's just gonna feel better to play games on consoles. Because moving forward, like the Nintendo Switch already had like the type of vibration that is on the DualSense, and then with the adaptive triggers and stuff like that, whatever the next iteration of consoles is, I think all the three, Nintendo, Microsoft, PlayStation, they're all gonna have similar qualities in their controllers,
which is dope. I support it. When you plug and play the DualSense, I haven't gamed on a PC in probably 20 some years. Did we even have gaming PCs back then? Fuck, I don't know. I was young. I was like 12, 13 maybe, and it was like all the games were basic. If you plug and play the DualSense on a PC, do you still get the level of detail?
The audio I think still comes across, and I don't know about the haptic feedback or the adaptive triggers and things like that.
Okay, so
certain games do. Metro, the latest Metro on Steam anyway has DualSense support baked into it. I didn't try it, but I know some games do. So like I've seen my friend and colleague at Fireslug, he has a DualSense and he was playing Metro on that. And he says, yeah, the vibration is totally different if you stick an Xbox controller or a PlayStation 4 controller on it versus that. And it's just more thought out and more nuanced. And he says, yeah. And he has not, and he doesn't even have a PlayStation 5, which is funny. He just went out and bought the controller because he thought the controller looked cool. So I was just like, okay, that's weird flex, but okay, I guess.
I didn't think about
Um,
that. So you could be a PC gamer and still go get a DualSense
DualSense.
remote and take
Yeah,
advantage of some of the.
there's
some of them, yeah.
there is possibility maybe for more in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
But this
Yeah.
is actually what makes me so excited about the new VR. Like when
mm.
I,
Oh,
you know, when they announced the VR, the second PSVR 2, when they announced that, the first thing I looked for in the controller is the DualSense features and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
3D audio. And when I saw that, I'm like, imagine have like Alex with that,
they can.
like
Yeah.
It's going to have
with
it.
that.
If it
Yeah,
is
no, it's
for
gonna have it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The new
Basically,
VR,
the
the
new
new VR
controller is like
headset
a
is gonna
DualSense
have it.
controller.
Yeah. So
I
it's
Yeah.
all
just had
DualSense.
I just had a nerdgasm. So what you're saying is instead of buying, I love my Oculus Quest, love it. Instead of buying an
Yeah.
Oculus Quest 2, I need to get that
It's
Yeah.
VR
gonna
for
feel
the
like a
PS5.
toy.
Yeah.
I think the Oculus Quest is gonna feel like a toy as well
Yeah.
because
Ooh,
they're gonna do 3D audio, DualSense, and adaptive triggers on their new controls. Plus, that new control looks really cool. Like
Yeah.
Oh,
it looks like a Valve Index kind
Yeah.
of hybrid,
mm-hmm.
and
mm,
I love the Valve Index. Like the Valve Index just feels so comfortable to play, and I
here,
really love that. Go
According
ahead.
to the Dev Summit that just recently happened that PlayStation had for their VR, because they've already started, they're knee deep in the process right
Yep.
now.
Mm.
They said that the haptics not only aren't the haptics and the haptic triggers, the haptics aren't just limited to the controller, but they're also in the headset itself. So, like,
Mhm.
can you imagine? Like, the first thing I'm thinking of right now is that Jesus Christ, I'm about to put Returnal on this bitch and
You're
go all out with this shit. Like,
Have a little
entering.
eargasm.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
bruh, I needs. Okay, it's a need at
uh,
this point.
You're gonna enter the matrix, like Mark
You
Cerny
are.
said. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah,
enter the
yeah,
matrix.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's good you mentioned Return as well, because from that same
Wow.
thing, that same event, they announced that they're trying to move away from tech demos type VR games. They want
The
full blown
triple
PlayStation
A
AAA experiences on VR.
that
That's not
goes
necessarily
Yeah.
that
saying like an
Like
Uncharted
Half
will
Life
also be
Alex. Like
VR. Yeah, exactly like that. Like Alex, it's gonna be like they want full
Half Life.
blown PlayStation experiences, but
Dude,
for VR. So I'm
bro,
looking forward to
I played Half Life Alex, and
that.
again, when I'm
good.
playing that game, I always forget.
That you're
Like there
not in
are
real life.
always these moments that I forget I'm playing a game.
Yeah.
Like it just looks so real, and there's no dual sense, there's no 3D audio, there's no
Mm.
haptic feedback. And imagine if you have all of those with that kind of visuals. Like I said, it's literally the Matrix.
Does
And
anybody
And
here have an Oculus or an
I
Index?
got a Valve Index. I
Okay,
you
have
have
a
a
so
Valve.
see
PSVR.
that is far superior. The Oculus is
Yeah.
essentially
No, but
a cell phone engine, so you
Mhm.
can't do
but
nearly the same things.
if the PSVR 2 comes, I don't think I'm gonna use my Valve Index anymore because it's a different level. I made this mistake. You know, you see, I'm still looking for a PS5, but I made this huge mistake that I was given a chance to try out a PS5. I was given a chance, and I was very hesitant about it because I'm feeling like it's gonna be hard to play my PS4 after
Mm.
this. But I tried it anyway, and yeah, I'm really desperate. I mean, I'm not gonna pay a scalper, but I'm really desperate to get those stocks back. Like
Mm.
PlayStation gets those stocks back because it's really getting hard to play on my PS4 because
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel the same anymore.
No,
It
like
just doesn't.
when I tell you, Akira, like I cannot spend more than a minute or two playing on a PlayStation 4.
Hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I really can't spend a minute or two playing on a PlayStation 4 when I know that there's a PS5 version of a game. So like it doesn't feel the same. The first thing I'm asking for is, where is the speedy loading? Where is the haptics? Where are the
Yeah.
adaptive triggers? Why isn't the 3D audio so robust?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, those are things I've come to expect.
Yeah.
Like we don't even pay attention. Like going back, like even playing on the Series S is fine too, because you know it has some of these things, the snappier loading times and stuff like that. But like loading times are abysmal on PlayStation 4, bro. Like,
Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima was very fast.
yeah, Ghost of Tsushima was very fast, but like,
okay, but then play it on PS5 and it's faster. I'm just
you're just thinking about pressing X and it's already gone.
I'm going to tell you, the PS5 is it's like getting a new girlfriend. It's really exciting. It's like my PS4 sent me roses because it's desperate because I won't touch her anymore. I
literally won't. I literally won't.
Just imagine like Death Stranding, bro. Like, oh,
yeah.
Death Stranding.
Okay, to everyone that's watching, help Akira get a PS5. Okay, find links and send them to Akira so Akira can get a PS5 without paying scalper prices. Help our boy get one.
Do you have hot
I
stock?
couldn't play. Huh?
Sorry, Akira. Do you have hot stock?
What do you mean? Sorry,
it's an app that basically tells you when things are in stock.
I don't have the hot stock.
It's called Hot Stock.
Is that in Japan? Would they have that in Japan?
I'll download that. I mean, I'll take a look at it.
It's an internet thing, so I think it'll tell you whenever things get in stock. It tracks like 30 different like e-commerce sites, and I don't know. It's how a lot of people are getting.
I'll try it out. I just really hope
you were saying something.
Sony tries to go through again.
Basically, I was saying that I knew that I couldn't not play without a DualSense when, like I said, I had a PS4 Pro before, right? I gave that to my brother. Now, my brother is, he's older than me. I would say he's more on the casual side of gaming. He plays like FIFA and Call of Duty. Those are like his main games, right? And he always talks about how much better he is than me at FIFA. And he is better than me at FIFA. I'll give it to him. I can't believe I'm saying that on the internet. That's there forever. But anyway, he always is like, oh, come play me. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went in the living room to play with him. And I held the DS4. And then I was like, this feels weird. Why does this feel weird like I'm playing FIFA? I was like, I can't do this. I was like, yo, I ordered a long USB-C just so I can connect the DualSense to the PS4 and play that. I had a small one before, so I had to sit close to the PlayStation. I was like, I'm not playing with that. And he was laughing. And then I was like, do you want to play this? Because it's backwards compatible on PS5. I was like, do you want to play it on PS5? And he was like, what difference is it? I was like, oh, my son. Let's go. So we went to my room and we started playing on PS5. And this is when I knew that the DualSense is something else. I don't know if any of you play FIFA or not, but on PS5, just like with like Return or Ratchet and Clank, they also have adaptive triggers. So it's like if your player gets tired, running is R2. So when your player gets tired, it becomes harder to run. It becomes
hard to press.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you essentially run out of stamina, it more or less
crazy.
Yeah, it essentially locks the R2, like you can't run anymore, my guy. Stop holding on to R2. I knew that the control was insane because while we were playing, we played like 5-6 games. Of course we did. But at some point, he took it while he was like playing. He was on the defensive side of things. He took his right hand off the controller and he started shaking. And he was like, "Oh, my fingers, like my hand's tired." And I just stared at him and I was like, "You don't even acknowledge why your hand is tired, but you're so immersed because you're playing a football game. The player's tired, you're tired." And he didn't even realize it, but he just did that. And I was like, that's
amazing.
So amazing. Yeah. Exactly. That's so merchant. And he never, not once thought about it, but he just did it. And I was like, there you go.
It's just go ahead, sorry.
I just was gonna say I still play some games on PS3. There's still some bangers. I have older systems that I still okay. I went to go
there is bangers, but like
I went to go to the PS3 controller and I felt like I was like, how'd I get big like Shaquille O'Neal? Like I got this little bitty and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Was the controller?
Exactly.
I used how did
we ever?
And the OG PS3 controller didn't even have vibration. It was even lighter. So it was just it felt like you're holding like an eggshell. I was like, what is this?
Bro.
It was terrible.
I mean, was it the 6 axes? It had no rumble. Then
it was terrible.
The
6 axis. I mean, they tried. They really tried.
Yeah, it was a mistake.
Bro, PlayStation really did like an evolution for controllers because like you said a while ago, they're gonna need. It's not even a want. They're gonna need to adapt that in the future.
Are they the first that introduced? I think they're the first that introduced vibration and rumble. Nintendo. They did.
Yeah, 64 had rumble first.
Nintendo had the rumble pack, and then
that's right. The pack.
Yeah, Nintendo had the rumble pack, and then shortly after that, PlayStation came out with the
DualShock.
analog or
Yeah.
with the DualShock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but the
this
DualSense is another
industry,
one.
yeah, this industry apes each other, but they one up. When they ape and one up each other, one has to do it. So like HD Rumble, the Switch came out with that, and that's
Yeah.
like that's almost it's haptics, but it's upgraded, but it's not quite the haptics that are in the DualSense. But like it's a market step up over the thing, and like the haptic triggers are a very marked step up and upgrade over the elite rumble triggers, as they call them, because you know the Xbox, I think the Xbox Elite controllers came out with the rumble triggers, which were
Yeah.
pretty cool.
They were.
You know, yeah, I played Forza on that, and I was
Oof,
just like,
I
oh,
love
this
it.
is pretty. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This
Yeah.
is pretty cool. The rumble triggers are nice, but like you play like Dirt 5 or any of these new games on the Rumble on the PlayStation 5, and you compare it to the thing, and you're just like, bro, this is not even
Close.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
It's-
true. But that takes us back to the authenticity
Yeah.
versus the realism, right? Like
Mhm.
it's and that's such a. I'll make sure that Sydney gets credit for that. But as we keep talking, it just keeps circling back that it's not
That-
necessarily
yeah.
realism we're after. It's authenticity and immersion.
Yeah.
By the way,
Immersion first.
this is actually, Bilal, what you said about FIFA, it kind of reminds me of Death Stranding a little bit. I had a feeling it's gonna play similar with Death Stranding, the way you balance the package and the way it gets harder.
I wouldn't
know
be
what I mean?
surprised. I
Yeah.
can't wait for the PS5 director's
Yeah,
cut.
it's
That's
exactly
the version I'm buying.
Like,
Exactly.
I
can't-
avoided the PS4 version. I like the plague because I knew a PS5 version was coming. No way Hideo is not giving us a PS5 version.
Yeah, no.
So I
Nah,
literally,
like,
I
yeah.
oh man, I can't wait for that. You have no idea.
Well, it was funny too because everybody kept asking. I remember everybody kept asking Cerny, "Is Death Stranding and Ghost of
Yeah,
Tsushima?"
yeah.
He
Yeah,
kept
yeah,
asking
yeah,
one
yeah.
of those PlayStation
Yeah.
5 games, and
Yeah.
the man literally coyly looked, smirked, and said, "They're PlayStation 4 games. Don't
Yeah.
worry." But
Yeah.
they'll work fine on PlayStation 5. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that man knows too
He
much
knows.
because he's working on everything. So I'm just like, all the people, and like, poor Kojima, because we kept seeing fans attack him for bringing Death Stranding to PC and leaving the
Yeah, I
PlayStation
remember.
5 and wanting a patch. And I'm like, guys, be patient.
Just
Be
wait.
patient.
The man,
yeah.
he's a small studio. Let him prioritize things. He's got different contracts he's got to honor, right? So like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure when he's done, he's gonna revisit the PlayStation thing and
he
come out with
did.
a definitive.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
people call me a Kojima fanboy.
I'm a
when-
Kojima fanboy.
Oh, you definitely are, Kira. We
I'm
know
a
you.
Kojima
are.
People
fanboy.
call me one because I capped for Death Stranding. But the truth, and I keep telling them, I'm like, dude, I just love Death Stranding. I'm not a
just love
Kojima
it.
fanboy.
No.
I'm not a Kojima fanboy. I could not finish
Ah,
Metal
okay.
Gear Solid 4.
Alright,
I
yeah,
didn't.
got it.
I beg your
No.
pardon? What's up, Mr. D?
No,
What's up?
no,
What- what's
I
happening?
just-
I couldn't finish it.
I couldn't finish
it.
any of them.
You,
I'm gonna
you
go
all
ahead
have
and
to
say
go to
it.
jail. I just
I
want you to know
couldn't
that.
finish 4. I played Ground Zeroes and I said, okay, yeah, I can't do this.
Alright.
So I never even picked up the Phantom Pain.
Okay.
And so like a lot of people, whenever I tell them this, like even on the other podcasts that shout out to Company of Heroes, Wooly and them, anytime I mention that I just love Death Stranding, but I don't really care too much about everything else, people pull out the swords and they're like,
Because it's blasphemous.
it's blasphemous, right? But I'm just like, but listen, I respect Kojima, his
Yeah.
creativity and everything that he brings to the industry, but like for me, Death Stranding was the thing that got me into his games. So like,
yeah.
the man is talented for what he
It's
is,
fair.
and like I
Yeah.
cannot wait for Death Stranding
Director's
cut. Like
Even-
I can't
yeah.
wait to go through all that shit
Yeah.
over again, and I can't wait to experience all the new content too. So like, bring it on, man! Like
This is actually one. There's one game that I think it's gonna benefit from that because, for example, I've been watching a lot of Deathloop. Right, Deathloop is almost there.
Oh, yeah.
And Deathloop looks like a game that is boring to watch, but I really believe it's fun to play. Like you
Oh
get
yeah,
your dual sense, you
most
gotta treat
arcane games
audio.
are though.
Yeah,
Most
Mm.
arcane games are. So
yeah,
like,
yeah. And I mean, they remember they said something about when the GAN gems and the
Yeah.
adaptive trigger gems as
Mm.
well. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah. They
cool.
said that. Yeah, I really when I read that I said that sounds all right. So
Mm.
yeah, but I think Arcane really does like when people just play their games, it looks boring. But I think when you play it, I think that's when that's what
hmm
it's gonna be. Although I'm excited about Ghostwire Tokyo getting DualSense features because they announced
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
I want
I'm
every game with
very
DualSense.
excited about that.
Yes.
Every single
honestly,
one.
that's all I want. Like, give me DualSense or I'm not playing it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get a
I think to
sequel
Bilal's
with
earlier point
DualSense.
is like I think whatever Sony's setting up in their dev kits and stuff like that, I think it's
Mm.
relatively easy for the developers to add those features into their games.
Yeah.
Because like I was recently playing Plague's Tale on the
Mm.
PS5, and they have the when you're walking through different textures, you feel the vibrations differently.
Mm.
The main character has like a sling that they
Mm.
like you charge it up, and you feel that in the
Oh,
triggers and
like
stuff like that.
Uh,
But that game's also on PC and on Xbox, and it's
yeah,
cross-gen. But this third-party developer implemented all those PS5 specific
yeah.
Yeah.
features, right?
By
I'd
the way,
imagine that they're
does
not
Doom
too
have it?
hard to implement.
yeah. I
Does
sent
Doom
an
have it?
article to
The,
Crystal. Like, you know how easy it is now. PlayStation already said it.
That's
does
really
Doom
cool.
Eternal have it? I want to ask you guys. Does
Does
Doom
Doom
Eternal have
Eternal?
the DualSense features? Doom
I haven't
Eternal?
played it on PS5
I
yet.
have no
Oh yeah,
idea.
but
Yeah, me neither. I haven't played it.
yeah, I haven't played.
No critique of Doom. It's just not my.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not.
No, I
Yeah,
get it. I get it. It's
I'm not
alright.
that kind of shooter.
No,
Yeah,
I
Doom
own it. My
is
backlog's just insane. I'm gonna get to it
Doom.
though. I love
Good
Doom
for you.
2016 though.
Doom is Doom is
the
acquired
backlog,
taste.
the
Yeah,
backlog, the bane detail of every. We have a detailed backlog of games that we just haven't gotten
fine.
through. Like,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
that's crazy.
I only have one. I hate backlogs.
I
No. I only have
I
one game.
used to have backlogs, and I'm kind of like I'm like I'm not buying a game until I finish this, which is
That's what I'm doing now.
That's what I
which is
do.
I did, yeah, which I did, and then basically now I don't have a backlog. I just buy games one by one and finish them one by
I
one
make
now.
lists of everything
Yeah.
that's coming out in the year, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I rank it based on like my own
Yeah,
analytics
yeah.
of how much I think I'll enjoy it, and I go down the list.
Yeah.
And I'm ridiculous and a little bit OCD, and that's how I keep.
Like I did something similar. Like when I got my PS5, I think, like I said, I got it like March, April, May, maybe times. The first thing I said I'm getting is Miles Morales for obvious reasons. He's Miles Morales.
Okay, yeah,
And
Miles
then
Morales.
I originally said I wanted to get, because I do that with all my consoles, I always buy a new console depending on a specific game. So PS4, I said I'll buy it when Infamous Second Son was coming out, and I think that was in January, February, and I made sure I'd get in that month. With PS3, I made sure that it was supposed to be Metal Gear 4, which was supposed to be a launch, but we know how that went. So Jerry, that's the kind of guy I am. So because I bought Miles Morales, I knew that Ratchet and Clank was about 2 months away. So when I finished that, I started playing all these random games, and then when I knew Ratchet and Clank was coming, I said to myself, all these games in the PlayStation Plus collection, I haven't finished a lot of these games. So I was like, let me finish these games, then I'm going to buy whatever, because I know Death Stranding is coming, Director's Cut. I know that Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut's coming. Do you know what I mean? I thought Forbidden West was coming. So I knew that those were the games I was going to finish my year with. So I was like, I need to play these games. And I stupidly started with Persona, and I'm still on Persona. So,
oh, dude, that's like 500 hours of your life you're not getting back. So, like,
I love it.
Just go
I
enjoy
love
that
this.
game for
I love
everything
it
that it is.
so
dude.
much. So
Go
much.
enjoy the shit out of that
And
game for everything it is.
yeah, I'm literally now 80 hours in. I'm on the fourth,
Persona.
fourth Palace, and I'm just. Do you mean I'm taking my time? I want to build all the relationships,
Yeah,
and that's why I've given up on the whole. Oh, I have a backlog. I don't. I will play what I want in a sequential order, and God will help me after that, because I know I'm going to buy games anyway.
That's how
I really hope.
I
I really hope Persona 6 is real, because we got.
Don't even say
Got some. You got some new features.
Don't say it. Don't even hurt yourself.
yeah.
So it's
Come
no,
on,
no,
Trying to
2029. Yay!
no, but
It's
Akira,
funny because
don't wish for that. You're about to have a child.
Exactly.
So don't stop wishing for that, or else your backlog's going to get too
it's
big.
funny.
Yeah.
It's funny because
actually,
I've been hearing about Persona for the longest, and I was going to
yeah.
get it, and then when I heard it was 500 hours, I was like, I really don't have the time for that. But like, I went in and got Catherine. You know,
Yeah.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that game is so. That's like it's almost. It's a game that's
Catherine.
also like
Oh
300
yeah.
hours long,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
like it is insanely good.
Insane.
Yeah, yeah.
and it's the same.
Catherine
It's a,
is.
yeah, it's same almost similar setup with how they approach storytelling like Persona
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah.
And so like man, there is just so much going on in that game. It's and the detail that they place into the dialogue trees, the character relationships that that your character has with the three different cats. It's just it's insane. I'm like
Different
I have
behaviors
so much
depending on the day.
I have so much going on. Like I can't finish that fucking game right now.
Yeah.
Like I just physically can't. So I'm like, my backlog is constantly growing, but I'm like, I'm making more effort to like just go through them when I have time. So like, I think the next few games that I'm gonna commit to finishing them, and like the chief amongst that is Kenna. Sifu and Metroid Dread. My God, I can't wait for that game either.
I got too many games I want. August and September. Wait
Oh
a
my
minute.
god!
Like August, I got No More Heroes 3 coming.
Mm-hmm.
No More Heroes 3, and you got the Fist, the rabbit. The rabbit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get that. There's no way I'm not getting that. Shuhei himself approved that game when he went to China, and Shuhei I know him. He has a good eyes for game. He would have not rejected God of War twice if he didn't have good eyes for games.
And you heard it here first, straight from his mouth.
Yeah.
But look, we have to go ahead and kind of get wrapping up because it's coming up on time where I have plans to do stuff. Real life. If I could just like throw it down the drain and game all day, that's all I would do. So in closing, what I think would be fun is what was your favorite Easter egg from Astro's Playroom? That's hard, right? Because there's like 50 billion of them in there.
There's
not hard for me.
So many.
Uncharted. As soon as I saw,
there you go.
I saw
for you when you saw Botcharted,
the plane wings, and they were like teetering. I was like, I saw, and the thing is, because obviously PlayStation 5, so it's got a great draw distance, right? Next gen consoles. As soon as I saw like plane wings, I was like, they're not gonna do that for me, are they? And lo and behold, there it was, a Nathan Drake and Uncharted Easter egg. That's my favorite one.
That one was a good one.
I love the Silent Hill one as well. Him dragging the
Pyramid
thing.
Head.
So good.
Oh, Metal Gear, that's a good one.
Metal Gear, mine is Metal Gear. Yeah,
I think Metal.
I didn't expect. Yeah, I didn't expect.
I think for me, the Metal Gear one was the most catchy one because who can forget the iconic Metal Gear sound when you're discovered, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But I think for me, my favorite, and like I'm a huge Gravity Rush fan, so seeing Catbot doing the fall going up the wall, I'm just like, Cat is awesome.
That's another game, man. It makes me feel sorry that it's gone. Basically, DualSense features for a game like Gravity Rush.
Nah, so it isn't.
Yeah,
like Shuhei, like you guys got to pay attention because like Shuhei still retweets everything that that the director and the creator of Silent Hill and he's formed a new studio.
Bokeh,
Bokeh, and Shuhei constantly retweets everything that man does. So like, just because they've now from what I'm learning is that they've closed down. They may have closed down aspects of Japan studio, but they've expanded XDev to be on a global scale to work with more developers. So like, you're going to Gravity Rush 3 is gonna happen. It has to. Yeah. If you ever completed Gravity Rush 2, you'll know that they left that open for a sequel.
I did.
They left. And Toyama said he wants to continue making he said he's not going to return to Gravity Rush until he's done his next horror game. So like Toyama is still going to be working with Sony. The XDev thing is going to happen. So like I'm not too worried that we won't. I'm not too worried that we're going to see you know, a Gravity Rush. But like those things are coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Those things are coming down the pipeline.
Let's
I don't
hope.
think. Yeah, I don't think Sony. I don't think Sony's really just going to be like, yeah, just let's close the book on that. Like, there's going to be certain things that they're going to do.
I mean,
they went through all the trouble of having Blue Point remaster 1 and bringing it to PlayStation 4, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
and you know that boosted the sales and the success of Gravity Rush 2 as well. But still,
I mean, they have.
Pucho, I mean,
they did bring back failed frames, so yeah, anything can happen.
I to be honest, I don't even remember the Easter eggs in Astro's Playroom. But just to speak to my favorite part was just the nostalgia room. Just I loved. I'm pretty sure I remember you could hit on the PlayStation 1 the little button to open the tray. I thought that was amazing. That whole room was just so cool because
that was incredible.
I'm what people on Twitter call a pony, right? But I don't know. I'm not like the like the console war guy. But I've only owned PlayStation consoles pretty much exclusively, and so it's the ecosystem that I'm used to. So that game was just a love letter to PlayStation, and it was just cool to experience it.
It was so cool. I mean, it was like the PlayStation 1 came out. Holy shit! What year? 95?
Yeah.
95.
So
94,
I was going into I was not quite, almost in high school. Like that's a long spent, rub it in. But that's like a huge portion of my life as a gamer. I felt in that game. My favorite Easter egg, one of my favorite games of all time. It's a PlayStation 3 exclusive, Heavy Rain. I saw that Easter egg and I'm like, the origami.
Origami.
Yeah, the origami.
So we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap up. But thank you guys so much for watching episode 15. I am sure these fine fellas will be back. And I hope you guys had a wonderful time. And to all my guests, thank you so much. I'm going to cut the recording off and we're going to hang out and chat for a few minutes. And we'll see you guys next week.
Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Later. Take care, guys.